I think my wife wanted something from me that I could not give her, or I didn't know like how to do. So it's not that I don't want to be vulnerable. I just don't know what you're asking of me.
But we've only defined vulnerability as an emotional thing, where I think vulnerability doesn't only involve emotions, but it also involves thoughts, right? So I can't just be naked with my feelings, but I can be naked with what I think.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's 2.5, even though there are 3 husbands, and that's because at some point, one of us, if not all of us, was not fully the husband that we were supposed to be.
And that's why we actually come here on a weekly basis to discuss some of the issues that we face, some of the issues we are seeing around us, and we hope that the journey that we started with you and for you is going to benefit you.
Hey, Mona. Didn't sang Fanaka.
I didn't think Fanaga.
Your phone is not gonna buzz on me, ne?
No, let's put it away.
Yeah.
Let's put it away. Is it okay if I
If you fidget, don't hit my desk.
Okay. Let's see what car.
But
next.
what you gonna buy next?
Yeah, what you gonna buy next? Tell her my wife works now. A real job. Yeah.
Let me do that as well. Let me see what God is giving.
My dream.
Let me see what God is giving.
Car is getting much closer to the
Shendeboska.
to reality.
A green Porsche, Mfana.
Yeah, Vanaga. You're gonna conquer.
Yeah.
I manifest
By faith.
this.
By faith.
Yeah.
Gaibona green Porsche.
Yes. Can you see yourself walking
but
in
by
it?
my bank account.
Yeah. But
Hallelujah.
faith is not what you see.
Hallelujah.
It is hoping things to come.
Yeah.
So
I don't
bank
think
account.
I don't think that verse speaks about a Porsche though.
Sorry?
I don't think it speaks about a Porsche.
Actually, sometimes you contextualize.
Hallelujah.
And you take what God said to those people then to your situation.
And we compare a donkey to a Porsche.
Yes.
Abo,
Like Jesus.
Jesu akenaka donkey
Donkey.
is equivalent to Jesu
Yeah.
akenaka Porsche.
Ka Porsche.
In 2000.
Hey.
Hallelujah, bazalwane.
Fire.
Yeah. We're gonna get into trouble when we meet Jesus one day. Anyway, Kobs Mbarak.
Yes, Malume.
It's good to have you again. I think, the masses have spoken. The petition has gone out. And I need to give you a contract
Okay, sir.
that you have to be a permanent member.
So
but then we have to change our title.
Yeah. What is it gonna be?
3.5 husbands.
How so?
Yeah?
No, we just replaced the Twana guy. Because you don't need you don't need 2 guys here. So
We don't need to turn
no, you don't need. Let's review his contract.
Okay.
And say we're not renewing.
It's been good.
Yeah, no.
We think you can grow somewhere else.
Yeah, like we're taking a different path.
I know people get fired, man. But firing people is a job on its own.
Yeah, no, you need to focus on the positives. It's been good.
Yeah. This is how you've grown.
Yeah,
You've impacted our company this way.
Yeah.
But for where we're going.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. Speaking about firing people, man, you have to. It's such a vulnerable space to be in when you're getting. I've never been fired. The job I'm in now is actually the longest job I've held in my whole life.
Wow. Yeah.
The shortest job I've held was I think 2 weeks.
Is it the Spur gig? Are we even allowed to say
I worked
such?
at Spur for 2 months.
Yeah, the story of the wings. Can you tell the story?
But obviously, I have to watch my language.
Yeah.
But I was in grade 10.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine was working at Spur, and he was killing it, man. This guy was coming with money, bro, to school. I was like, dog, how hard could it be to be a waiter? And I was like, let me do this thing.
Yeah.
Before I even tell the story, and ask my wife, I have a profound respect for waiters, bro. when I go out and eat,
Yeah.
I'm even if the person gives me like crappy service, I'm like, dog, me, I know this gig, I will tip you. Right?
You tip, yeah.
Me, I'll tip, bro. Right? I wish I had more money because I would tip like 500 and above because
Yeah.
I know the struggles of that. Anyway, so I'm there and I'm working for airtime, really, you know, because I'm like, the money they're giving us, man, like I got paid like $30.
Yeah.
And they took 10 Rand or 15 Rand for the envelope, the other 15 Rand was in. Abo? And then they write on the envelope, packaging. Deduct. Anyway, I was partying there, and then this family came. There was a bunch of them sitting around the table. I left my pen. I don't know where. So I don't have anything to write and take down the notes. So I'm like, I'm a rapper, dog.
Yeah.
I got this, right? Anyway, getting the orders, get the order. So you have to repeat the order.
Yeah.
There's like 7 people, bro, right? So I'm like, hey, you ordered this to drink. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you ordered this to drink. Yeah. I get to the dad.
Yeah.
I'm like, so you ordered this, call out his drink, sure, nice. And then I'm like, and you ordered a full portion of ostrich wings.
Yeah.
And then he's like, come here. If you dare bring me ostrich wings. In my ear, dog.
Yeah.
I will shove them up your.
Yeah. Wow.
That was the last time, bro.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm done.
It was that's
In
you
my
quit.
in my head, like it's I actually need to ask Spur, bro. In my head, I'm like, buffaloes don't have wings, though.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
that's why I thought ostrich. Although I've had buffalo wings, but I was like, in the moment, I'm panicking and thinking, like, buffaloes don't have wings, bro.
Buffalo. It's a place in the States, I think.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I should have
sources
learned.
from
I should have learned that part of the test because they make you write a test. Like that thing is intense.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, we here.
So you left or you got fired?
Nah,
It's
quit.
Just like
Quit, bro.
given your
Nah, I quit. Walked out, bro.
Yeah.
With the t-shirts and all that. And I think I worked enough to pay back because you pay for the uniform. I don't know now.
Yeah.
I worked enough to pay back the uniform, and I was like, I'm not coming back, bro. Can't fire.
You taking a different path.
Yeah. But I worked several jobs anyway. I've never been fired.
Yeah.
I just walked out.
No, it must be especially if you have kids, like to be fired,
So that's rough, bro.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah, but good thing Prince doesn't have any
Right.
kids. So,
So for him,
well, it will be an easy conversation. Yeah,
I see. Anyway, we're here now.
yeah.
Your wife wants you to be vulnerable, Kaveri. How's that going?
Yeah. That's that's a conversation, right?
And maybe
But before we get into it, like you're wearing a neck thing,
Yeah.
like in the spirit of apparently vulnerability, sharing
yeah.
your
How you feel?
Yeah, how you feel.
Yeah. So what do you say? It's a necklace,
yeah. Okay.
but I just tightened it. If you see
Oh,
it,
okay.
So it looks like a choker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Is that what they call them? Chokers. Yeah. Because I'm thinking of Matlagala from high school.
Yeah. was it a
There were
girl?
those. Do you remember the black ones?
Yeah,
That-
those are chokers. Yeah.
yeah. It's giving.
Yeah.
It's giving those vibes.
Come on,
Yeah.
Leave me and
Yeah.
my choker.
No, you are fashion forward.
Yeah. Define what vulnerability is.
Vulnerability is what you spoke about. Like if you being fired, it's almost like you stripping naked. Like like everything is stripped away from you, and people
Yeah.
can see
Yeah.
you at your weakest moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's at some level being transparent so that people can see through you or in you, whatever the English is.
yeah.
Did what's his name, Brené Brown, talk about vulnerability?
You would know. You read.
I don't.
You studied
Don't
that
expose me publicly in saying I read Brené Brown.
You've said it before.
Have I?
Oh, even at church.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
It's okay.
No, she speaks a lot about
Vulnerability.
vulnerability. And right now I forgot what she says.
But I think transparency is That's a big one. But I think more than whatever other definition we give to vulnerability, when I think of what my wife wants from me, is for me to expose my heart.
Yeah.
And not just for the sake of exposing my heart, but so that she, in some way, is empowered to love me, to know, what parts of me and in my life she can, fit in, be there, take care of,
Yeah.
etc., etc. So it's like opening the gates
Yeah.
of my soul so she can be empowered to step in comfortably and live there as well, and take care of me when I need to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Call me out when I need to be called out, see me when I'm at my weakest and how she can encourage me, etc., etc. But that takes a lot for guys to get there. Like it's even hard for us as men to open up
Yeah.
the gates of our soul, as it were. I feel like when we, and maybe that's why personally I struggle with like guys, So by guys, I mean like dudes who are like macho, we want to drink beer and watch sports. That's what defines us as men. You know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
for the longest time, I hated sports because of that. Like I had nothing against sports. I grew up playing sports, grew up playing soccer, and then in my primary school we had that one rugby match that never happened, and the league was. I think we got kicked out of the league because of how small we were.
Wow, yeah.
But then the school didn't want to tell us that, right? Because we started a rugby team. Had like practice for weeks, bro. And then when we were supposed to play our first match with War School Kempton Park,
Yeah.
right? They were like, oh no, they canceled. But then we realized those kids were gonna trash us, just physically. Like they were
Africans boys.
they were gonna destroy us, bro. I played cricket, so I did athletics. So I did sports. I had nothing wrong with sports. But as I grew, I realized, man, like it feels like a pissing contest with guys,
Yeah.
Oh, I know so many facts about this guy. I know so many facts about. I'm like, Jacks, bro, just sit down and enjoy the thing. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to show off of how much you know, right? And then we all just like couch coaches, right? And so I think for me, that's the stuff that I was just like, man, I can't. Like, I'm here. I want to talk, bro. I want to open up. I want to know you for who you are.
Yeah.
I want you to know me because I feel like that empowers me as well to walk comfortably, to walk openly with a friend, with a
Yeah.
brother, with a dude. But most dudes, man, it's like our vulnerability will be care, right? It won't be here. And I mean, like, we'll try and connect on like very generic things.
Yeah.
Our love for cars, our love for sports. And I'm not saying we can't, like, that's not part of who we are. But I'm
Yeah.
like, bro, like, we can't talk about Michael Schumacher all the time. Like, I want to know about your life, right? I don't want to talk about Matt Chandler and what sermon he preached and what other theologian you've discovered. Like,
Yeah.
what's happening in your life, right?
Sure.
And so I think from a guy-to-guy level, if it's hard, I can get it. Why then most wives are just like, I see this dude is a shell, man. Right? Because then now you're dealing with somebody. It seems as though vulnerability comes more easier for them. And they just like, yo, man, they're here, they're in the pocket, and you just taking time to come
Yeah.
in, right? And maybe there's other ways that men are vulnerable, and that's what we'll talk about.
Yep.
That maybe our wives don't get, right?
So if I'm hearing you correctly,
Yeah.
you're defining vulnerability as opening up
Yeah.
and using your own words as opening up so that we can walk the path together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what the thing just came back to me that what Brené Brown says that it's making yourself naked and hoping that nobody laughs at you.
Sure. Sure.
And I think that's
So you need me in your life.
yeah. So that's
I jog your memory.
defining. I don't know about that. Defining vulnerability, because what you're asking, like, so I feel like in my own marriage, I've been asked to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
and first of all, what's vulnerability in Zulu? Let's get there.
there's a
Because
guy-
you saying we struggle as men, and I think that's true. We let's get to that later. But like, just even on a cultural
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
dude, I think my wife wanted something from me that I could not give her, or I didn't know like how to do. So it's not that I don't want to be vulnerable. I just don't know what you're asking of me. Like, what is it in Zulu?
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Eh,
There probably is a term. Listen,
no, there's no term. There's no
You
term
know
for that.
Tswana better than I know Zulu.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in Setswana, what does it? How do you? Yeah, like, is it? It's not part of everyday language where you'd say
And maybe it's just woven into the culture.
I'm vulnerable, because again the marriages we observed over the years where
Yeah.
like the thing that was prized the most was, hey, Papa is providing. Some of the men who were working in the mines, and then they would come at the end of the month or whatever the case may be. So I think for me, having observed other marriages, it wasn't so much that like this concept of city life where we just in each other's face and having to connect deeply, open up so that we can work together.
yeah.
It was a case of here's the man, he provides. That's a good marriage, man. He's not working off with some other
Skirt, yeah.
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 He gets home, he served food, he watches the news.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he gets the remote when he comes home. And then that process is perpetuated. Saturday he goes to chill
With the guys.
with the dudes. And they talk exactly about Kaiser Chiefs and Pirates. So there's no, I don't know. I don't come from a space where vulnerability as a concept is a thing.
I think how we got there is, most of the time definitions come up because people live a certain way, and then we have to find ways of how to define the habit that makes whatever culture, right?
Yep.
But I think we, especially in the city, because you were talking about, coming from a place where men provide, Monday to Friday they're at home, they bring back the bacon. Saturday they go to hang out with the boys at the Shebeen, talk about Kaizer Chiefs and Pirates. Sunday maybe they'll go to church if they don't have a society, right? And then Monday they repeat the thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think the culture we live in, because there's many factors, but we've only defined vulnerability as an emotional thing, where I think vulnerability doesn't only involve emotions, but it also involves thoughts, right? So I can't just be naked with my feelings, but I can be naked with what I think. So I can withhold what I think and tell you how I feel, right? You're still not getting all of me. Because I could say to you right now, yeah, I feel sad about whatever, right? I feel sad about this clock. But then I'm withholding my thoughts about this clock, or how I got to the feelings of sadness, how I, think about whatever's attached to this clock, right? And I tend to think that for men, because we could be more cerebral and tend to be more cognitive, and if stuff makes sense in our heads, then we move, and then we have motive to do whatever, right? So I think vulnerability cannot just be defined as me just sharing my emotions.
So I don't get it though, because so in my mind, what if I look back at what was being required of me? If I look back at what, and I think at some point my wife and I went through to counseling during our second pregnancy, and I still remember her saying, like, you're just not vulnerable. You don't share your life with me. And I think the type of job that I do as a pastor, like what I had was maybe sharing my thoughts, sharing my life meant, like in my head, it was like, no, if you come back from work, you need to tell me what you were like doing and stuff. So relaying what had happened.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, well, but some of the stuff and most of the stuff is confidential, and I can't really
Yeah,
share
sure.
that part
Sure.
with you. And then the counselor made an illustration I'll never forget. He said that, like, it seems like to you, your wife is saying, share your life with me. And the way you view your life is that the camera is always there. It's always about the people that you're serving. It's always about the experiences you're going through, but it's never focused on you.
On you.
And for the first time, it clicked that what my wife was asking me to do was to turn the camera back and say, shucks, today this and this happened, and this is how I felt about it. Or at least in the vulnerability training that I received, it was like, share your emotions, share the things that brought you the most joy today, or the things that brought you sadness. So that was the exercise we were given to go practice being vulnerable. So I'm just trying to, throw it back
Yeah.
and say, to me, I think that's what they're describing. Sharing your emotions and not so much your thoughts, because I can be,
Yeah.
like, I can share my thoughts without being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Vulnerable means I'm letting you in, as you say,
Yeah.
like opening up.
Yeah.
So to me, it was opening up my heart, because I'm quite comfortable, as you said, to share the cognitive
Yeah.
side of me, because that's where I live.
So what I was saying is, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is, if we just define vulnerability as emotions only, then I think it does a disservice, especially to men
Okay.
who are more cognitive in how they operate in relationships, right? Whether it's at work, it's with friends, and with your spouse, you would function more at a intellectual level. So I think if we're just defining vulnerability as emotions, then I think we're cutting
Okay.
out a large part of how we are wired. So I see it with you, where I'm like, it takes a while for you to get to the emotions, but I think once your brain has been massaged in our relationship, I'm like, oh shucks, then your heart just opens, right? But if I would ignore that and just try and get you to open your heart all the time, I'm like, that's gonna, and we like grinding against your wiring. We're grinding against how you function.
Yeah.
But I'm like, every time we chat, I'm like, yeah, it's okay, man. We could stay here, for a good amount of time. But I feel like, again, once that's taken care of, it feels like then this opens. But if I'm forcing you to open this without acknowledging that they both connected, and a big part of who you are
Okay,
is this,
yeah.
right?
No, granted, I agree with that.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That I think in a culture where and vulnerability might also be a cry that's reactive to men who've always not been emotional. And so now it's like we want to swing the pendulum all the way to the other side and call you to be as emotional as you can be. And I'm like, yo, man, I think let's find more natural, organic ways of how we can get that thing to happen. But even how you got to the point of acknowledging that, yo, man, I need to be vulnerable here. I'm like, you had to sit down with somebody. They spoke to your mind, explained what this thing is. And eventually you were like, okay,
Yeah.
so I can now pour out my heart, right?
Yeah.
So my beef is just that I'm like, but I think those two things and this conversation doesn't happen in marriage. That the wife is calling for your heart and you don't have words to say, please massage my brain so that my heart could open up.
Or maybe to put it this way, like, I think we often vulnerable without realizing that now we've switched gear. So I'm hanging out with you.
Yeah.
You talking basketball and whatever
Yeah.
else, like we talk about. We can talk a lot of rubbish.
Yeah.
As guys, and then, like, it is in the moments of feeling comfortable that
Yes.
we let go, but it's not an instant switch that you
Yes.
like you can just
Yes.
hey, like, yo, today yes, it was such a hard
I'm
day.
just laughing because I know Tuzu's wives just say like Just talk, man.
Yeah.
Just open your heart.
Yeah.
And it feels like at that point, they just on the main switch doing this thing.
Yeah.
And you just
And
like,
you can't like it's not a switch like and whereas with girls I feel like it comes more natural to be in that space because they live in that space. It's more natural for them to experience life as it was difficult today.
Yeah.
This is how my feelings like were hurt or whatever. But I don't live in that world, and I always find the more guys I speak to, the more I realize that what wives require of their husbands. I think they convinced that we're not wanting to be vulnerable or wanting to give to them our hearts. But I think it's often that we don't know what they're actually asking for. Like
how to do it.
I think it's a muscle that dudes need to exercise because it doesn't come natural to us.
So how did that play out in your marriage? Your wife asking for the thing. What was the point that led her to even say, "Yo, cops, I think you're not opening up"? And then how has that journey been?
That's a good question. I think if I recall back, I think it was how old was Anaya? I think
3 now.
She's 3. So yeah, I think it's that 7-year. They call it the 7-year itch, when like things start to settle.
Yeah.
When life has already happened, and when you fully realize that like this is who I'm married to, and I think for my wife, that came at that stage. A whole lot of things were happening to us, from a point of view of just living, and I think the way she described it was that a lot of our lives were centered around me and my visions and my plans. But at a certain level, I wasn't letting her into my emotional side, and I wasn't basically taking care of her heart in all of that. So like sharing my struggles with her, sharing my hopes, dreams, desires with her, but also just in turn tapping into her hopes, dreams, and desires. So it's almost like we were living, we were cruising, the ship was sailing,
Cruising
but
nicely.
and other things were okay, but to her it just felt like no, we just roommates who basically now it's about, have you changed the diaper? Have you has Ari eaten? Okay, what about this pregnancy? Who do we get as a nanny? So it became marriage became logistics. And maybe that's the best way to describe it. It's like, we're running a company. Have you paid the bills? Like, who's
Let's have
gonna
a
take
staff
out the
meeting.
It felt like that, and it was just like for her, flip. Like, is this what my whole life is gonna look like and feel like? I don't wanna be living in this sort of transactional company. Like, I'm expecting a relationship, but you're not showing up. And I'm like, but I'm here.
And it's not like at that moment you're intentionally not showing up in the way she wants. You have your hands in like 500 other things. You know, so work is obviously a big thing, and you're dealing with people. Right? Sometimes I feel like I wish we just worked with computers and you just like punch numbers and leave the thing. But there's so much of yourself that you have to invest in your job that you also have to work hard to make sure that there's still a big chunk of your heart available for your family. But in the day-to-day happenings of life, you don't cognitively sit down and portion out yourself and say, I'm going to give 50% to my gig, 50% to my family. But you're just living, and then you don't realize how much of you is depleting because of your work. By the time you get home, it's like you have 10%. And in your mind, you're thinking, well, I'm here. And the examples we have are dudes who are not there as well. So in some sense, without consciously thinking about it, we're killing the game, right? We're not sitting there saying, just because I'm here, I'm killing the game.
Yeah.
But there's something inside, Chucks, man. I don't know any man in my life who's been present physically at home. I'm at home, so like I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
But then you realize that's just the bare minimum.
That's yeah.
You know, like your child, your wife needs more of you. Which again, I know we're talking about how you and your wife got to the conversation, but this made me think about how people portray marriages, especially in our gig as pastors, where it's like even talking about this, like how could you? Because you're supposed to be the model citizen.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah.
How could you even say that there was even a point where your wife is calling you out to be vulnerable because you're supposed to be the model citizen. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You're supposed to have all your ducks in a row. You're supposed to... And I'm like, this is vulnerability on its own. There's a dude who I told you about yesterday. I'm not going to name his name. But he basically said how we quick to just embrace grace that's 4,000 years old, right? Or grace that's 2,000 years old, right? So if we read the Bible and we see, Abraham's story and all his flaws, or Moses and all his flaws,
Yeah.
or David and all his flaws, and it's like, wow, but look at how gracious God was. But for you, in real time, we're not going to try and exercise that same grace because somehow you're supposed to live post your struggles, like all the Bible characters that we know, you know what I mean? So anyway, that just made me think about being vulnerable, just
Yeah.
as men, as pastors, as leaders, and not just walking around as though we have everything figured out.
Yeah.
Anyway, what would your thoughts be on that as you journey to answer the question about your experience with your wife?
So my thoughts around
What I just said now, yeah.
like grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think on the one level, I mean, it's just true. Like we are like men who don't have it put together.
Yeah.
And I think there's a constant pressure to get into marriage and figure out, be the perfect citizen who knows how to pursue their wife's heart, but who's also providing financially,
Yeah.
who's also like doing well at their job, and then on top of that must be a good dad.
Yeah.
So it's like we juggling all of these things that in some ways are new to us.
Yeah.
And like not negatively, because it feels like we often contrasting African culture and the spaces that we came from as something negative, but it isn't. It's just there was a different set of rules. There was different set of things that we learned as to what being a man is.
Yep.
That we get into this space, which I would call a like suburban middle class life. It's very different
Yep.
from what we know, and it requires different sets of skills
Yeah.
to keep a marriage alive.
Yeah.
And so you come in and everybody expects you to have it together. And it's like, no, like you soon realize that I actually don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I'm figuring this thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those who came before me, like even like godly people who got 40 years of marriage experience,
sure.
some of them maybe didn't have those struggles
Yeah.
of having to think about, hey, that must be vulnerable. What is that? Like there's no language like that
Yeah.
where we come from. And that's not a bad thing. Yet at the same time we are expected to then, I would call it code switching, because we're learning
A new
a new way. And I think that,
Yeah.
of being a good husband.
Yeah.
So the rules of the game are constantly changing.
Yep.
And then we expected to, play by those rules.
Yeah.
So I think, we're not perfect. We get into this thing. Most of us don't know what we're doing. And it's not like we're arrogant and are saying, no, I can't learn from anybody. So you look for people to learn from, and then you realize, I think they play by different rules. What I'm being asked to do here is like Ndate Maziboko doesn't know what vulnerability is, so I can't go ask him. How do I actually become vulnerable with my
Mkhulu, ngicela
wife?
ungitshele ukuthi yini vulnerability?
Vulnerability, man.
I forgot who I was listening to, who said, well, it was either their dad or their granddad,
Yeah.
who said that he gave his wife his whole salary.
Yes.
And they asked why. And he's like, so that she doesn't concentrate on all the other areas I'm messing up in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I'm like, that could work as well in a different setup, you know? Like your wife has her own salary now. So you giving her your
I
own.
think I should give her my whole salary.
Yeah,
Do you know why?
Yeah, why?
Because so she knows when it runs out. There's no more money. Because she sometimes
Thinks that
I don't know, like I'm
there's
like,
more.
but you do know we make X amount, right? Like there's nowhere else we're gonna get money from. So stop asking me for. I think I should do that.
Are you sending another e-wallet?
E-wallet? No, I think I should send the whole salary.
Now, yeah.
You can take your own e-wallet. Yeah.
Anyway.
That's what 21st century women
Yeah,
need.
yeah.
Give her your whole money.
whole money.
She'll give you pocket money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if she would send me e-wallet if I give
Yeah,
her
let's
all
try.
the money.
Let's try. Send
Ah,
her your
we'll
whole
do it
salary.
after. Yeah, let me first check out my
Come
my
on
debit
now.
orders.
Yes.
And then we'll sort that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
So give me an allowance.
So your wife was asking you to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
How did you take that? Like initially when she brought it up.
Do you know that clip where Jacob Zuma where he rolls his eyes?
rolls his
Like so to me, I mean, not in a bad way, but it just felt like like what do you want from me? Like
Umang.
I've given you everything. What are you talking about that my job, like I'm focused on my job, I love it more than you.
Yeah.
I'm at like
Yeah.
I do what I do for you. Like if I wasn't married, like hey man, I would stay here for 5 years,
Yeah.
go into do
Yeah,
mission work
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
that's
DRC. Like I would honestly do that. I would work
feel
for
you.
next to nothing, just
Yeah.
if I wanted to follow my passion.
Yeah.
And very often it's so as a guy, you thinking my way of loving my wife is by making sure that like the family is taken care of, which means I'm gonna do my job, which means when I do my job, that's how I'm thinking that like I'm doing my best as a husband to take care of the family. She wanted something else. She wanted my heart. And I'm like, no, like first of all, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But also I thought I gave you everything. So
Yeah.
there's nothing more left for me to give. It felt like that. And it felt like an unreasonable thing that she was asking for. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So hearing you again, going back to what I was saying about taking care of the mind as well, because I hear a lot of husbands say that. You
Yeah.
know? It's like I care about the same things you care about as my wife. So if you care about us getting a better house, I care about that stuff. But so as you thinking about the home that you wanna make up for your family, I'm thinking about how much this house is
The
gonna
house
cost.
is gonna cost.
Right? So you're thinking
costs
about the
2 million
home.
rand.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking about the same thing.
Yeah.
But I need to go make sure that like we get the 2 million to buy the
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
So that you can have a space to create the home, right? But I feel like husbands and wives, like we don't actually put it down in those terms. But instead it's, hey, give me more of your heart. And it's like, what does that even mean? Like even now,
Yeah.
as I say,
Yeah.
like what do you mean I must give you my heart,
Yeah.
right? And if I say as the husband, like I don't have time to be giving hearts here. I'm working,
Yeah.
right? She doesn't get what that is.
But
I'm like,
not only that, she doesn't get it. I think it's translated as, therefore, you don't care about
yes,
me.
yes,
You don't love me.
Yes.
And I think that's where the danger is when when we don't realize that we actually come from different worlds. And
Yes.
my wife is not nagging me
No, she's
by
not.
asking for my heart.
Yeah.
That's a skill set I need to learn. And I think equally for wives to come to realize that he's not actually being unloving when he doesn't give you his heart. He just doesn't know what you're asking for. That's not the world that he lives in. He probably thinks he's doing the best in giving himself to you in other ways. The thing that energizes guys is not sharing our
Their hearts.
emotions
Yeah,
with
sure. What
with
does that
ours.
make me?
Yeah,
Because that energizes me.
it energizes you. It just makes you a different human. My life coach said,
I was setting you up there because I
like-
know you think rubbish.
percentages. I wasn't gonna do that. No, I wasn't gonna do that because I
hear you.
think it's a thing not to joke about. I think
Yeah.
there are men who kill it when it comes to sharing themselves and
Yeah.
their emotions. But a majority of men
Yeah.
live more in their cognitive space. So it's actually a superpower that you have. And I only came to realize it when a life coach, told me that you are cognitive. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
he asked me about key relationships in my life, and he says, I can't remember how I answered the question, but I thought my way through the emotions. And so and he said most men are like that. And a few men are able to be in touch with how they're feeling and communicate that. Yeah.
So
And I
my
think that's a superpower and not a.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. No, no,
Not a
that
weakness.
and we could probably get back
I mean,
to
you're weak
that.
in other areas, but we can talk about that's another podcast.
I know. Like my head is smaller than yours.
Yeah, that's a weakness.
You very strong.
Yeah.
Strong-headed man.
Yeah.
Were you a head boy at your school?
No, I wasn't head boy.
Your favorite
didn't
soccer
have-
move was a header, ne?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I see.
That's why I
Sure.
play defense.
When we played Zweep, you always on heads,
And
not tails. Ne?
you on the roll. ne?
Yeah.
You on the roll.
If you bend, you'll roll.
Yeah. Other like small-minded people do not
Yeah?
have such jokes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
people with big heads with small minds. That's why.
No, not actually. Not
Have
actually.
you seen that
Not
movie
actually.
Concoction? Yeah, Will Smith.
Yes, I have. Is it Will Smith? What about the beds?
Yeah, but their heads they have a cage inside that holds their brain. So
Yeah.
even when I think it was rams that hit each other's heads,
Yeah,
and every time they do that, their brain is intact.
it says insulation.
I don't know about you.
So yeah, maybe it does mean it was protected quite a lot.
Yours?
Because when you were dropped, I don't know what.
I was 5
injuries.
months, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
And my cousin dropped me off the bed,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
continued sleeping. I didn't cry.
There was damage done there.
No, it was
Because no was na
protection.
cushioning. Yeah. So in my case, yeah,
love
I
it.
think God knew
Yeah.
I needed that protection.
No, hallelujah.
Amen.
But I was saying, I think husbands and wives need to meet each other where the other one is, and I think that's what the definition of marriage is. That if, as a husband, I'm constantly trying to get my wife to leave her heart, and I use this just for the sake of the point, to leave her heart and to communicate with me more cognitively, I think I'm not doing the job of being married, which is dying to myself and my ways and the way I function. But I need to try and meet her where she is, which is what your wife is calling for, and most wives. Share your heart, share your feelings. So I need to be fighting as a man, fighting myself and how I'm wired to try and meet my wife where she is. But at the same time, if vulnerability is going to work, and that's the point I've been trying to labor, is she also has to find ways to let go of saying, give me your heart. But how can she meet you at a cognitive level? How can she massage your brain? How can she find ways of saying, this guy only thinks he's way through his emotions, so how can I find language that connects with him there, right? And if you're doing the work of meeting her and her at her heart, she's trying to meet you in your brain. I'm like, I think that's when we're vulnerable, because part of vulnerability, to your definition that you use from Renee Brown, is being naked and no one laughing at you. She's doing something that she's not naturally gifted in. So she's gonna be naked and trying to meet you at your brain, and you're not gonna laugh at her, right? And similar thing, if you're gonna have to meet her by her heart, you're gonna look clumsy, you're gonna stumble, you're gonna feel awkward, and she's not gonna laugh at you, right? For me, so I'm saying for me, that's what I think vulnerability is, and we can't keep on calling people to just be emotional, especially guys, if that's not how they're wired. Nje, I'm like, those two things need to be accommodated, right? It can't just
Yeah.
be one thing. I'm not giving us a pass as husbands to not meet our wives at their hearts, but at the same time, I'm like, we can't just keep on drumming the
Oh, I
beat,
get what
hitting the beats on one side.
you're doing. So like relieving the pressure from men to you almost feel the weight and the
Yeah.
thing of it's up to you. You gotta be
yeah,
vulnerable.
yeah,
No, I think that's true. I think the biggest thing for me is awareness. So
Yes.
awareness on both sides that we actually live in different worlds. I think the more we so to your point, meeting each other halfway, the only way for us to do that is by coming first to realize that we're actually operating like you are Ubuntu and I'm Windows. Like we just those two systems need to speak to each other. And one, because if the wife doesn't understand that their husbands are wired a different way, it causes hurt, it causes dissatisfaction, because they have expectations and their expectations are not met. In the same way, for husbands, they'll be frustrated because they feel like they're doing their best, but they are met with an unappreciative wife. So the moment we come to realize that, hey, we actually come from different worlds, that's the first step, I think,
Yeah.
in achieving that, meeting each other in halfway.
Yeah.
I do think it's the job of the husband to lead the wife to a more cognitive side, and I think it's the job of the husband to learn skills on being more aware of emotions, because
Yeah. Sure.
I think it's a skill set that we need to learn, to exercise that muscle of I can't always be emotional, but I need to realize that I am an emotional being. Certain things that I think are cognitive, sometimes I'm just actually reacting, having an emotional
An
reaction.
emotional reaction. Yeah.
So I think it's, again, marriage, we sharpen each other. And I think there's a lot that ladies can learn about men. I think it is dangerous once we start thinking, he doesn't love me, he doesn't care. It is dangerous when the husband thinks,
She doesn't understand
she
me.
doesn't, yes, she's ungrateful, whatever. The more we understand that we come from different worlds, the better.
And maybe practical tips is wives should ask the husband, "What do you mean?" So if you say something, because you're gonna think your way through the emotions. If I'm your wife, I should be asking you what you mean,
Yeah.
right? So, hey, how was your day? My day was ABC. Wife responds, "What do you mean?" Right? That's more of that's cognitive language. But the husband is supposed to ask how you feel, right? Hey, how does that make you feel? Because that's more hard language, right?
Yeah.
I don't practice this with my wife, but as you were talking, I remembered a conversation that we had recently, and it felt like we were fighting, and maybe because my heart started pounding quite a lot, so I just remember feeling like we're fighting, but we weren't fighting. But she was trying to like make me understand. We were talking about business. She was trying to make me understand a strategy, right? But at that point, she was engaging me cognitively, right? And kudos to her that she sat there and she just engaged me for a long time, right? And we had this conversation back and forth, okay, this is gonna work, this doesn't work, that works, blah, etc., etc., etc. But what happened in the process of that conversation, I realized, oh shucks, there's fears that she has behind what it is that she's presenting and talking about now. So then I was aware enough that we could talk about this business strategy, but she's bringing it because there's emotional fears behind that. So I need to remember to engage those at some point in this conversation, right? And I think that's what I mean by vulnerability. That she could be vulnerable enough to engage me at a cognitive level and say this is how she's seeing the numbers and this is what would be better. But then I was aware enough of the world that she comes from and realizing, okay, behind that there's fears. Because at that point, I could tell you, like at an emotional level, I was just thinking, man, what's the best way for us to make the most money here? I wasn't thinking emotionally about this thing. I was thinking, what's the best way to make money? What's the best way to get us the kind of life that we want to live? But then I realized behind her fears is like, yo, man, if the strategy doesn't work, then there's failure. If there's failure, there's disappointment, there's et cetera, right? And so then having to come to a point of saying, oh, Smack, okay, let's move this strategy thing aside. Here's what you're actually feeling. Here's where you're actually at, right? And I think, yeah, that's how, at least for me, vulnerability should look like in marriage. But it can't just be this one-sided thing that you've been called to as a man, as though women are not supposed to be vulnerable in ways that you understand as a dude.
You're still tripping me up because I think I still don't get this because in my head that's not a thing.
Okay.
So I'm being like you're tripping me up because I'm learning because I think a lot of what you're trying to do is move the weight on like the man is the
No, I agree with you that we're responsible as husbands to be leading the charge. But I'm saying part of what makes leading the charge hard is because we've defined vulnerability in one way. So it is hard. And it's going to be hard for your husband to continue finding a place where he's going to be more emotional if there's no way where the wife is meeting him at his level. It's just going to continue being hard, right?
But can't we just say that, I mean, vulnerability is one thing. It is that you need to meet, it is emotional, right?
Yeah.
But, so if there's two different things, cognitive and
Yeah.
thing, and emotional,
Yeah.
we will tend to be living in this world, and then they will tend to be living in this world.
Yeah.
And this world is a world of vulnerability and exposing ourselves. What word did you use? Opening yourself up.
Yeah.
And that we mustn't put. So I think I'm getting you. We shouldn't put all the weight on
Emotion.
the husband must be emotional.
Yeah.
Because I think there's strength in not being emotional all the time. Also, I think we just don't what you're saying. We're not wired that way.
Yeah.
It is a muscle that we need to develop,
Yeah.
which is why we're good for each other.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe because I'm just confused with the whole vulnerability and
Being cognitive.
be cognitive.
Yeah, sure.
But I think what I'm understanding is that don't put the whole weight on things. Let's meet each other halfway.
Yeah.
I was gonna say as we were speaking about that, meeting each other halfway, that I feel like for me the things that helped us were third parties
Sure.
rather than us hashing it out.
Sure.
So going for therapy,
Sure.
me going for life coaching
Sure.
to actually see, oh, this is who I am. Oh, this is what my wife meant. Because when we hit it and you're telling me I'm not vulnerable, it's a personal attack on me.
Yeah.
If somebody else says, what is meant by that is that you approach emotions, or you approach a situation like that fear of money,
Yeah.
like the conversation you had with your wife.
Yeah.
You need third parties, I think. Maybe that's
Yeah, sure.
You need people to help you to realize, hey,
Think
you
through
come
that.
from different worlds.
Yeah.
And he's not attacking you. She's not attacking you.
Yeah,
You both headed for the same goal. You're just communicating it and
definitely.
approaching it differently.
Yeah. And there's moments in our marriage where I think for me we've done that well, where we acknowledge each other's worlds and putting disclaimers that we're not attacking each other in this moment, but we're hearing each other. You know, I think there's been more moments where we've done that well, and there's been a few moments where we needed third parties. But I think
No, but when you kill the game when it
I
comes
don't.
to, well, from looking from the outside, it
When
seems
it comes
like
to vulnerability,
you have a deep, what you might call it, friendship. Yeah.
yeah, I think our friendship is deep.
Yeah.
With my wife, yeah.
Isn't part of that like
Yes.
that you share
Yeah.
and are in touch with each other's hearts?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is like, yeah, not normal. I mean, you didn't. No, like it isn't. Like, come on.
It sounds like we're aliens.
No, at some level, sometimes I'm like, how are these people like such good friends? How are they like able to unpack? Oh, Flip, I'm disappointed with this. Yeah, like it seems like
Yeah.
to me, you guys have had it good when it comes to that area. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's not perfect,
Yeah, sure.
but compared to most people that again we interact with, that hasn't been the case. So maybe you didn't need the counseling because you just had it. Maybe you should give counseling.
Although I do think, and that's why I'm probably hesitant. I don't want to give off the impression that we don't need counseling or third party, you know. And every time I think about that, I just think about obviously again living in the burbs and move away from community where I'm like, if you're in the hood or the village, there's somebody always there to call from, you know, your aunt, your grandmother, your dad, whatever, your mom to just step in and help, you know. But for most people our age, middle class, living in the burbs, is most people live in isolation. And then marriage just becomes harder because you don't have other people speaking into situations that might need external perspective, particularly even with this one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't want to give off the impression like we don't need therapy, but I think or third party or community involvement.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing in marriage. But our friendship has been a key thing, man. It's been a blessing, and I think it's been for us, I think the thing that has helped us to find each other when it comes to the area of vulnerability, you know, where I'm like, yo, man, and I keep saying to my wife, like, you're my homie, man, like, you know, and and like, yeah, I'm not here to like go for your neck, and she's not here for my neck, but we just homies doing life together.
Yeah, so I think for me, I would say 10 years later, she's becoming my homie.
Sure.
And that's because perhaps the skills that maybe came natural to you are now, yeah, like I'm learning those skills and are now able to say, shucks, we can actually become friends. And I want to share my heart and life with you. It's not going to be perfect, but I think I know a thing or two now about what was meant and
Yes.
what's required of me.
Yeah,
But it's a skill that's
being
taken,
developed.
yeah, quite a number of years.
Yeah, and maybe that's the thing as well of encouraging husbands. Just hold on, you'll get there, and giving yourself that space to grow. And I would maybe even say this. You know, we'll probably get to the end of this conversation. How do we cultivate a culture of vulnerability among men? Because I think that will also add on to how we are in our marriages, you know, because it's hard for dudes to just be vulnerable. So I think if you spending time with your boys and there is a level of vulnerability that's exercised there, maybe that might also translate, you know, at home. Because obviously, if it's 5 dudes, we all don't have that skill.
Yeah.
It's gonna be uncomfortable. We're gonna be naked and unashamed, and no one is laughing at anyone. How do we try and cultivate that so that at least it becomes natural in other areas of our lives, especially the most important, which is our marriage?
Another friend of mine said you need 1 or 2 people in a group of few men to start doing it, start sharing
Yeah.
their struggles, start sharing their like where they are, and then the rest will follow. Because like what can I say? Like just do it. But yeah, again when I say just do it, like I don't know, because some people don't naturally know what like how to do it. Yeah, and I think intentionality to say next time I go hang out with gents, like I want to walk away having impacted someone's life. I
Sure.
want to walk away with not just talking about
Chiefs and
Chelsea
Pirates.
and Chiefs and Pirates or the Springboks.
Yeah.
How can I share something of my life to so that these guys can have a say in me? So I think it's a mindset shift of not being comfortable with always having shallow relationships. I think that's step 1 to that. Wait, my next conversation, my next meeting with guys. What am I gonna share that's exciting me about life? What am I gonna share that's really bothering me? Try that and see. When we do that, I think guys tend to then also share their lives.
Yeah. Sure. That's dope, bro. I don't have anything to add on to that. I think that's dope advice. It's dope advice. Because then I think once we exercise that muscle in spaces where we've considered like comfortable, safe, we can be ourselves, and we introduce that kind of culture and way of moving and operating, I think then the space that we should be the most comfortable and safest, which is home with our eyes, then we can translate that there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's dope, man. I think that's dope. Yeah, but I'll also end with the point that I've been trying to make. Let's meet each other halfway, man.
You've labored that point.
I've labored, yeah. Let's meet. And to your comment of me having superpowers and seeing how vulnerability has worked um, so organically in my marriage, I think there is that, and that's why I'm like my wife meets me, man. You know, she doesn't just say, "Give me your heart," but like she massages my brain and my heart, and then that just sets me on fire to just be like, "Yo, man, this is all of me," right? And when I give her all of me, I know that she'll take it, the parts that need to be corrected, she'll correct. You know, there's times where I'm like, I can just tell that this chick is like, it's okay, man. Like I can't rebuke you now because you're very vulnerable, but we'll bring this thing up later. So she's met me halfway, and that's also encouraged me and inspired me to just go harder and be vulnerable. You know what I mean? And that's why I think I'm probably laboring the thing that much. Because I've seen just how taken care I feel, hence I'm also inspired to just take care. And I'm not saying wives don't do that to their husbands, but if that's not happening, here's a word: do that. Right? Yeah. Cool, bro.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being vulnerable.
Yeah.
For all the episodes you've been here, you've been vulnerable.
I'm learning. My wife, thank God for her.
Yeah.
In expecting, expect it from us, but show grace. And I think she's done.
Yes.
She's done both.
Yes.
Like the high expectations need to be high. Like that,
Yeah.
she cannot live in a marriage where there's no vulnerability, but the grace of actually this person is gonna learn and grow his way towards that. So both those things. have been in place, and I'm learning more and more. How to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I saw this video of 90-year-old lady or whatever. I don't know how long they've been married with the guy, but the guy was sitting next to her drinking beer. And I think it was their grandkids interviewing them. And she's like, he's not going anywhere. I've invested so
much training him.
I've trained him so much.
Yeah, I saw that one. He's like, I can't find another one. I've turned too much time training this one.
So shout out to your wife for being gracious and training you.
Yeah, he's trained.
All right, man. We'll see you on the flip side. 2.5, all right?
Yeah.
Peace.
Cheers.